for the City Council Nonprofit Organization Subcommittee. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Council Gitchia.
Here.
Council Mercia. Council Noon.
Here.
Council Robinson.
Here.
4 present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Tonight we have the privilege of having the Bridge Club here tonight, and they will highlight all the great things they do for our community. And we have Bob Cox, who's going to represent the Bridge Club and all the wonderful things you guys have done over the last few years.
Thank you, Councilor Gitchia. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Now, will that stay lit without me keep my finger on it? Okay. Well, I mean, here to speak about my favorite subject, obviously the Bridge Club, and been very blessed, really, no other way to put it, to be able to hit the ground running. And the timing of our startup was questionable, really, because of obviously COVID-19. So that just makes it more of a miracle that we were able to survive through it, and actually we prospered through it. A little backdrop on it for Councilor Noon. Bridge Club was established in 2018 as a result of myself dealing with an alcoholism issue. I got recovery, and in Florida I was down there for 2 periods, 60 days total, and saw something in existence down there that kind of caught my eye, and it was a program they call them clubhouses in there. It's a 7-day-a-week availability of AA or NA meetings. That's the only reason they exist. There's really no other reason that these facilities exist, and they're all over Southern Florida. And when I had seen it, when I had come home after being there for a period, I came home and I was doing what most people in early recovery do. I was going to meetings because that's what they tell you to do. You got to go to meetings, make sure you show up every day and involve yourself, talk to other people who are dealing with the same problems you are. But what caught my eye was I couldn't find anything that was even close to the same consistency at the same location. It was definitely a void. So I reached out to a friend of mine, actually the friend that I'm sure you're all aware of is Mike Miles. He's the good gentleman that I reached out for when I needed help. I called Mike, and Mike got me set up down in Florida. But I called him and I said, how come I can't find anything that's even close to this? It was called the EDI Club in Delray Beach, Florida. EDI standing for Easy Does It, AA mantra you see on bumper stickers all over the place. But Mike said, they just don't exist up here. I mean, pockets of the country have it. They're very successful. It just never really gained any steam up here. So I viewed that as, selfishly, I viewed it as maybe something I could concentrate on because I felt like I needed, some additional help. And that's what I did. So I went out and incorporated in 2018, and then with no money, really, and just started. We organized a board of directors right away. The first person I had asked was City Manager Golden, actually, because, I remember seeing Tom early on. I remember hearing people, I think I heard Paul Salucci maybe at the time speak about Tom with reverence, saying, how that he was forecasting this opioid crisis coming to the Merrimack Valley. And people were always talking about how Tom would consistently talk about this warning about this opioid crisis, and I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I knew Tommy since he was a little kid. I knew I didn't think he had any kind of drug problem or anything like that. But so I asked my brother, I'm like, what's going on with this? How come Tipper is so, on top of this thing? And he pointed out that Joan, his wife Joan, is a pharmacist. And she was seeing these doctors haphazardly writing these scripts, and she knew it was going to get out of control, and she was right. There was no tracking mechanism at the time that is in place now. So these people that were, able to get prescription medication, whether it's OxyContin or whatever the case might be, they would get it from 5 or 6 different doctors prescribing the same medication, and there was no tracking system to point that out. So, obviously her wisdom came true, unfortunately, and the opioid crisis became what it became. But Tom was the first person I had asked to be on the board. Second person was City Councilor Rita Mercier over there, and she's still on the board, and she's a big reason that we've enjoyed this success that we have. Mike Miles, another person that was on the early board, and a couple of people that had long-term recovery. So we opened, I was looking everywhere, honestly. I looked at probably 30 different pieces of property, just desperate. I would have opened in, seriously, if someone said, yeah, I have a garage you can use, I would have been okay with that. It was funny, it wasn't funny, but it was kind of sad that the places that I would find that were perfect, landlords would say they didn't want to deal with the stigma. Didn't want to deal with the stigma of this vision that they had was, you see the methadone clinics where people are lined up outside, shooting up and things like that. That's what they had, the vision that they had, because they really weren't privy to what was going on in Florida. Those weren't those types of programs. These are programs where people are showing up, everybody's, supporting each other. It's a really special, good, Corey.
Thank you. I don't mean to interrupt you. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I've heard you speak, and one thing that really stood out to me when you described what motivated you to kind of bring, part of the reason that motivated you to bring this up north to our community. Do you mind just touching on, I believe you spoke on, down in Florida, there was, you were in the room by yourself, you said. And
Right.
you saw something on like a magazine rack or something, and that kind of really resonated with you.
Sure, that's great. That's actually, that was the turning point for me. The fact of the matter is I had gone down to Florida for 30 days back in, I believe it was 2016. And, I hadn't really stopped drinking from college. I mean, I joke with people, Mary Ann Ryan, I said to her, geez, Mary Ann, I was the guy who went on spring break in 1979. I came home in 2016, and that wasn't too far off the mark. But somehow, God was watching me because there's so much tragedy that is involved with people who have fell prey to addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol. And by some miracle, I was able to maintain a family. My wife's still with me 42 years, 4 children, 4 grandchildren. If that's not a blessing, I don't know what is. But I came home after the first 30 days, Councilor Robinson, thinking, wow, I got this, I can't believe I can actually go a few days or now 30 days without drinking. I mean, it was like breathing for me. It was like, how am I going to live without air? That's what the addiction had me, that bad, and so I came home and I did exactly what the people, long-term people told me not to do. Don't listen to the voices in your head. It's going to happen sooner or later, where somehow it's going to seem like not a bad idea to have a drink or a beer. And, when that comes, it's this disease speaking to us, and it does. I mean, people that haven't experienced addiction can't fathom the depth of the control that a substance can have on someone. And and this addiction thing, this doesn't live in liquor stores. It doesn't live in the crack houses. It doesn't live in the alleys where they're selling coke or what have you, fentanyl. It lives in our heads. So addicts and alcoholics carry this disease with them every single day of their life. And sometimes it goes dormant. And what happens is you get complacent. That's what happened to me. I got complacent. I started thinking stupidly after 40 years of drinking. I'm thinking, maybe I wasn't that bad. Oh, really? But this is the lie that the disease tells addicts and alcoholics. And I fell prey to it. And so I relapsed after a period of time, and I ended up, after almost a year of just embarrassment and self-loathing, I ended up back in Florida for a second time. And honestly, I wasn't convinced that this was going to work for me. I had zero confidence, and at that point I was suicidal before I went back the second time. So once I got back to Florida, I detoxed for a few days, and maybe 3 days into it, I went to start a regimen of meetings, to start my program again. And I was at the first meeting, 8 o'clock in the morning meeting. I showed up early. No one was in the room. And I'm trying to figure, I'm scared. I don't mind telling you, I'm scared. And I'm trying to figure out what I can do wrong, what I can do differently. As corny as it sounds, I'm thinking, I walk up and the shades around, they call them the shades. You'll see them in AA halls anywhere. It's called the 12 steps of recovery and then the 12 promises. And, there's a whole 12-step process that everybody's aware of, or I've heard about anyway. And, it speaks of, admission that you're powerless over alcohol is step 1. Step 2 is, the acknowledgement that a power greater than yourself exists. And step 3 is that if you turn your life and your will over to the power of whatever that greater power that you believe in is, and the potential is to change your life. And I was standing in front of these shades 10 or 15 minutes before the meeting started, all by myself, just trying to, figure out, I have to go back to step one. I got to figure, as corny as it sounds, I got to figure out what I did wrong. I did something wrong. And all of a sudden I'm going through it. And, I was raised Catholic, and I had God in my life always. And, so I got step one. I knew I was an alcoholic. I known that since probably in my early 20s. But, all of a sudden, step 1, 2, and 3 all came together in one question and answer. Yeah, I know I got an issue. Yes, I know God's there. And if I turn my life over to him, maybe that will solve my problem. And I'll be honest with you, I'm crying. I'm looking at these shades and I'm crying. I'm saying, all right, God, you want me to turn my life over to you? I'm willing to do it. Show me what to do. I don't know where am I going to find what you want me to do? Where am I going to find this? There's no book I can go to, no reference manual. And then all of a sudden the doors opened and people started to come in the meeting. So I, took care of myself and sat down, and quite honestly, I kind of forgot about the conversation I had. Until a couple of days later, one of the counselors came in right before a meeting started and said, come on everybody, let's jump in the bus, we're gonna go to an off-site meeting. And they brought us to this place in Delray Beach called the EDI Club. And it's just a nondescript strip mall. In the middle of this mall, there's a docked out building, docked out windows, it just said EDI. Just a mall you would see anywhere in Lowell or Draycote or anywhere else. There's a Walmart at one end, or a Walgreens at one end, and a Dunkin' at the other. And I walked in, and there was a classroom set up, and there was an AA meeting going on. So we sat for the meeting, and I couldn't figure what I was, what was this all about? What's it doing in the middle of a strip mall? So waited till the meeting was over, and I went up to the gentleman after. I'll never forget him. He worked for Home Depot down there, and he had an orange Home Depot shirt on. His name was Morris. And he was probably in his 60s, and I said, Morris, what's the deal here? I mean, what's this all about? What's the philosophy behind this? And he said, you with a Genesis house? And I said, yeah. He goes, how long you been sober? And at the time, I said, 6 days. And he says, well, I've been sober like 36 years. And it's 36 years or 6 days, it doesn't matter. One of these days, you're going to hear a voice in your head that's going to try to convince you that it's a good idea to have a drink. So what you're going to do is when that happens, you pick up your cell phone and you call your sponsor, because that's what the program tells you what to do. But you know what? Your sponsor doesn't know you're looking for him. He doesn't answer your phone, so now you go to the next best thing. You call another alcoholic, because that's what the program tells you to do. Call another alcoholic, tell him you're having problems. Let him or her, talk you down. But that person's not answering either. So this desire to drink, this urge, this temptation is getting greater and greater. And when that happens, you can walk into this door. And there may be a meeting going on, there might not be a meeting going on, but someone is here that can hand you a cup of coffee, and 9 times out of 10, it's the difference between breaking out and not breaking out. And I thought, wow, that makes sense to me. Not thinking about the connection to my conversation with God in front of the shades. And then it came, a month or two later, when the whole philosophy of maybe I can do this in Lowell came around. It came back to me that, geez, that's exactly what I asked for. So that's where the motivation came from. That's what the driving force behind it. But, I could talk about this all day long, this early recovery stuff, but the real meat and potatoes is what has happened since we were fortunate enough to open. We found after looking for like 30 pieces of property, we found a sign. I saw a sign up on Chelmsford Street, at the Mills at 325 Chelmsford Street, space available with parking. It had a 45 number on it, so I wrote it down and I called it, left a message for a guy. Guy called me back. It was on a Thursday. Guy called me back the following Monday. And I didn't know the gentleman at the time. It happened to be Peter Jarvis. And he said, you left me a message. What are you looking for? So I told him. He says, I got a place in downtown Lowell you might be interested in. And I said, that's downtown. There's probably not enough parking. He said, oh, there's 80 spaces for 80 cars there. I said, really? Where is that? And he said, gives me the address, 33 East Merrimack Street. And he says, right across from the auditorium. My father used to buy cars there. It was when it was Lowell Buick. I remember that, that building. So I said to him, geez, I'd like to see it. When do you want to see it? I said, how's 10 minutes? How's 15 minutes? He goes, okay. So we drove down there. I drove down there from my house in Draycote. Peter was leaving the dealership to meet me there. And when I had left Florida, I had grabbed a copy of this place that I had seen there, not the EDI Club, another place called Crossroads, which it wasn't just AA or NA, it was everything under the sun. AA, NA, gamblers, overeaters, learn to cope, teen in crisis, every single thing to do with addiction, they supported it. And that's really the concept that I wanted. So I had taken one of their flyers, one of their brochures. It had the picture of the front of Crossroads on the front of the brochure. So when I was leaving my house to go meet Peter, I grabbed it off the counter and I put it on the dashboard of my car. And when I pulled into 33 East Merrimack Street, I look up at the front of the building and I'm like, all right, God, I got the message. It looks identical, to the point where I've become great friends with, he's kind of my mentor, the founder of Crossroads, 96 years old. I created a picture in a frame with the two buildings side by side. I have one hanging at the Bridge Club. He has one hanging down in Delray Beach. But, I'll tell you what, go back to how the wheels really got turning. It was 2018, Christmas time, 2018. And the board was established. And I had a question. I was looking for Rita for something. And someone said, oh, she's up at the Owl. I heard Shaw talking on the radio. She was up at the Owl Diner ringing the bell for the Salvation Army. So I said, oh, I'll just go up there. And so I went up there, and she was standing with this woman under a 10-by-10 pop-up, who I didn't know. And Rita introduced me to the woman. It was Marion Ryan. And so Rita said, Bob's trying to open this addiction, awareness club, addiction recovery. And she and I, who had never met before, started the conversation about, boy, it would be nice to have a program that could help people when they're getting out of jail to avoid the whole circle of recidivism. So she's, people are getting out and there's no resources. They're dragging around a query. They can't pass a query. They're dragging a stigma of having, been in jail, and whatever got them there, is obviously still in their resume, if you will. And it's nearly impossible for people to get successful. So they end up going back to the same people, places, and things that got them in trouble in the first place, and it's a never-ending circle. Her angle was it's costing the criminal justice system a fortune. And, I looked at that as maybe we can do something. So in the next year or so, I had approached a couple of employers and said, there's a whole pool of people here that are, just looking for a chance, just looking for, just all they don't want to hand out, right? The cliche, right? They don't want to hand out, they want to hand up. And so we lined up 3 employers that were willing to work with us. And the trade-off was, we said, if you do that for us, we'll support them by transporting the people that you hire from us to and from work for up to a year, free of charge. Won't cost you anything, won't cost them anything. And that's what we started at the beginning of 2022. Now, there's a void there, obviously, and that void is COVID. So what happened there was we found the building with Peter, ended up securing a lease, and we moved in on January 1st of 2020. 75 days later, March 15th, COVID hit. All the municipal buildings shut down, all the federal buildings, the state buildings, and 2 weeks later, all the churches went kaput. All the churches shut their doors. If you think about that, that's where 99.9% of the recovery meetings happen. Mainstream America didn't see what was going on in the recovery community. The recovery community was flipped upside down because all of a sudden, their lifeline, for alcoholics or addicts, their group, their home group, their support system, all of a sudden, it's about being face-to-face. It's not, Zoom worked for a little while, but it didn't pack the same, impact that the face-to-face meetings in the group settings have. So the recovery community was turned upside down, and you could see it right away. The suicide rate went through the roof. The relapse rate, we're talking people with 10, 15, 20 plus years of sobriety relapsing because their lifeline just got snatched away from them. We saw it right away. And they were starting to impose, the city also, and state, federal government, imposed all the maximum of 50 people gathering. Then it dropped to 25, then it was 10 or whatever it happened to be. And you know what? It got so bad, we just said, you know what? We're going to stay open until the city comes down and changes the doors shut. We're going to stay open. So we did. And we never closed, not one day during COVID. And you know what? Talk about God watching. We never had an outbreak. People getting COVID by going to CVS, by going, just out to general purposes. We were stuffing upwards of 100 people in a room, shoulder to shoulder, 7 nights a week, and we never had an outbreak. If that's not divine intervention, I don't know what it is. I don't know how else to explain it. It's not luck. It is not luck. So given that fact, we stayed open, but we were looking, I'll be honest with you, I was panicking because we got lucky early on. Like I said, we had no money. So, we had nobody to answer phones, any of that stuff. So Corey Belanger actually and Rita were running the Mayor's Opioid Task Force at the time, and Rita had asked me to sit on it. Lo and behold, the first meeting, and I believe it was June of 2019 that I attended, Mass Hire showed up. It was Tim Hovey and I believe Katie, whatever, but two reps from Mass Hire showed up and announced that they had just received a $2.7 million grant, opioid grant, that was funneled down through the Trump administration at the time. And they were looking for employers that could just hire people that were in early recovery from opioids. They didn't care what they did. It was grant funded. It was $15 an hour. It wasn't a lot of money, but $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, and that's it. No overtime, no nothing. But it was enough to get somebody started. They wanted to get people just back in the habit of going back to work, having a little bit of responsibility. So in short form, I had 9 people hired through the grant because I had nobody. We had no money to pay anybody. So, they were answering phones, running meetings, doing cleaning. It was a team that was quickly built. So I had them on payroll. The city was administering the payroll for Mass Hire. And when COVID first hit, we had just started to gain some steam. Meetings were just starting to happen. We were just really getting some momentum going. COVID hit and everything stopped. Everybody was afraid to go out, including people going to meetings at that time. They didn't know the meetings, number one, they weren't really readily available, or no one was aware that they were available, but no one really knew whether they were going to get sick or not. So it didn't take long for us to realize that the city, I was thinking the city sooner or later is going to just come in and shut this down. They're going to shut us down because there was nobody coming in. 9 people coming to work 7 days a week, but there wasn't really much going on. So I got everybody together and I said, let's get some ideas. We have to somehow justify our own existence here. Give me some ideas. And one of the girls said, I just took recovery coach training from a guy over at Middlesex Community College. And recovery coach training at the time was a buzzword. The opioid task force, both the mayor's and the DA's task force were talking about this new thing. Recovery coaches were going to be the thing of the future. Come to find out, the reason being is that the insurance companies were pushing it because it was cheaper than a licensed counselor, and they pretty much do the same thing. So long story short, we reached out to the gentleman, the professor next door, who was a professor at North Shore Community College. Steve Chisholm is his name. And he was also the grant writer for the college. He became friendly with us, he did our training, and became our grant writer. So it was, it was another one of those coincidences that wasn't a coincidence in my opinion, but so that led to us being able to secure grant funding. It actually created the model kind of by accident that everybody at the Bridge Club is a recovery coach. That's the deal. If you want to work here, you become a recovery coach because we cross-utilize everybody for everything that we do. We transport people 7 days a week on 3 shifts to work. So even the drivers are recovery coaches, so that those people in recovery that we're taking to and from work, one day they might be talking about the Red Sox, but the next day the guy might be saying, geez, I almost picked up yesterday, I had a really bad day, and that person, that driver, is equipped to deal with it. It's a unique and it's very effective.
So Bob, can you explain how you got to the driver piece? It's simple for you to say it, but for everyone to understand what you mean by a driver picks someone up, brings them to work, or how they get to that position. Do they go through a program first and then they get a driver to take them somewhere back and forth?
Right.
Or is it you just send a driver to pick someone up and go somewhere?
No, it's the way it's structured is it's part of the original grant funding that we got. Marion Ryan had supported us through a grant. Steve Chisholm wrote it, and we got funded in late 21 under the Community Empowerment and Reinvestment Act, the CERP program, which included reentry programs, exactly what we were intending to do. So under that program, we were able to hire people, anyone with a valid driver's license as an employee was subject to becoming a driver. That was the deal. If you wanted to, if you wanted a job, are you willing to drive people to and from work? Yes. So when people would get released from Billerica House of Correction or anywhere from that, for that matter, they would come to the Bridge Club, do an intake, at which point we would get all their information. We would give them clothing. That's part of the deal. We have 2 rooms that are full of clothing that's been donated. We have 2 girls that's their function. They make sure it's clean, sized, pressed, hung. Someone comes in, they walk them through, give them everything. Everything's for free. And at that point, show people what job opportunities there are. I'm not skirting your question about transportation. I'm getting to it. But at that point, we set them up with a job interview. Once they get the job interview, the transportation kicks in. So we drive them to and from the interview and any kind of pre-employment.
So the mission for the Bridge Club, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to take somebody into recovery, give them the tools to deal with the recovery process, and then get them out to the work process and give them the resources to get them there. That's
Exactly right.
And how many programs, I know you have culinary down there, you're starting culinary.
Culinary's going to be starting next month, yeah.
Yeah, and those programs are important because I think there's not only job skills, but there's life
Right.
skills that are provided. But how do you get somebody to your program? And when they get there, what are your standards to staying there and to keep somebody on the right track?
Well, it depends on what they're doing. I mean, if they're looking for employment, obviously sobriety is number one. We won't drive someone to work if they've been drinking or drugging. It's just not. It doesn't behoove us to support that type of activity. But as far as how people get into the program, they come from several referrals. They walk in from the street, getting out of jail. We've really been identified now statewide as a resource for reentry. So we have an MOU with the Sheriff's Department, Middlesex Sheriffs. We have an MOU with the Department of Correction. We're going to be starting a program where our people are going in behind the wall and doing anti-recidivism workshops, wellness workshops, we call them, on the pods with people who are getting out of jail within 90 days. And that brings all of the information as to what is available for them when they get out. To the table.
So when they're in prison, is there a recovery program going on at that point, and then they come to you at a certain stage? Is that how they get to you?
It's kind of a mixed bag. Like some of the programs that we provide, we'll start that project early. Billerica House of Correction has a unit called the Matador Unit, and that's for people who are on medically assisted treatment while they're in jail. Most of the different jails have the individual systems, individual programs that help people deal with addiction. I mean, if somebody's in there and they're on any type of medically assisted treatment to help them deal with, their addiction, whether it's Suboxone or what have you, the jails actually administer it to them while they're in jail. And when they get released with a last dose letter, and it's a continuum of care. So they get out, they can go to a place like us, or we'll hook them up with a clinic where it's like getting a prescription filled. But there's a whole host of programs, Eric, that go along with that. I mean, we're talking about employment, but we're not limited to just employment. We've got vocational training opportunities as well. For example, last year we put 3 veterans through tractor trailer training school at New England Tractor Trailer Training. It's $12,700 a piece. It's grant funded, but that's a life changer for people. That's $100,000 a year all day long. If they get their class 1. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. We've been very, very fortunate. But we reach out to other partner organizations too and use those resources. We have an MOU with MassHire, which is huge. So when someone comes in and does an intake at the Bridge Club, all of a sudden they get their MassHire number through a QR code that's on the intake form. And all of a sudden they have access to everything that MassHire brings to the table. Resume writing skills, the P2E program, you name it. So it's pretty powerful.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Bob. Not for many of us, you and the program need no introduction. You have done an exceptional job, and despite COVID, I was here 2018 when you're starting over at the 33 Market Street. So you have done an exceptional job in terms of helping not just yourself, but also a vision of trying to help others in the city and surrounding city of Lowell. My question related to the people that enter your program. You mentioned some from referral, some from walk out of jail, like reentry program. The reentry program, you mentioned Mary Ryan, the DA, Middlesex. Is that partly, when people going through a process, a criminal process, either be substance abuse or OUI and whatnot, one of the conditions for them going to jail, coming out with conditions that they attend AA or an A, right? So that already there. So your program, basically the reentry program, as soon as they get out, their condition is that A, to get a job, and you're helping them with that, and B, to get to come into the program that you have there. Is that correct, Bob?
That is correct. And a lot of the people that are mandated through probation or parole will come through, and they have to get signatures from whoever's running that meeting. That happens every single day. Single day.
So the number between the walking out of from the street or referrals or reentry, what is the number of people you serve every day?
150 to 200 people a day, right now, come through every single day.
And you have just night staffing?
7 days. Pardon me?
You have how many staffing you have? Staff.
Missed it.
How many staff?
The staff. Yeah. We do. We actually do.
How many you have?
There's 14 on the staff right now.
14.
And then there's 14 on staff and 3 administrative people. So we got a total of 17 on payroll.
And how many do you help in terms of transport them to and from work?
Pretty much everybody that's an hourly. There's only a couple of the 14 that do not drive, only because they just don't have licenses.
Right.
And they do the lion's share of the recovery coach work. People who come in and they want to be assigned a recovery coach.
Right.
We provide the recovery coach services for free. It's kind of a cross between an AA sponsor, if you will, and a clinician. A recovery coach kind of meets that person where they're at. And recovery coaches all have life skills, the life experience. They've all, dealt with these issues. So they meet them right where they're at, and they kind of become their friend and coach them through, kind of convince them the way to jump on their own recovery plan and be successful. Give them the best chance of being successful.
Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to take a moment to recognize Councilor Belanges in the chambers, and Councilor Scott is also here. Bob, I'm going to reach out to Councilor Mercia and then Councilor Robinson. So Councilor Mercia.
Yes, I just want to interject this because this is my feeling in a nutshell. Sometimes bad things happen to people for a purpose. And I firmly believe that what happened to you in your life brought you to a purpose that you could have said, oh, gee, I'm feeling better. I'm kind of cured of this. I have to work on it. But that wasn't where it ended. You thought to yourself, wow, I can't believe what this program did for me. How can I help others to feel what I went through? So I commend you and I admire you for everything that you stand for, because I see it day in and day out. I've seen people that I never thought would live, never mind work for you, and are free of the stigma and the disease of alcohol. So I'm so proud they have a purpose. You gave people a purpose. I know you're very modest and you don't want to hear it, but I'm going to say it. I had to say it because that's how I feel when I think of the Bridge Club, and it wouldn't be even there if it wasn't for you. So all the lives that you've saved and changed and gave them a purpose in life, it's amazing, and I thank you so much. But let us not forget, because you did not do this alone. And I'm going to say it, and they say don't mix church and state, but I'm going to say it anyway. You have an ally by your side day in and day out, and that is Jesus Christ. That's our Lord. And never, ever, ever underestimate the power of prayer, because that's what you have done. You can't do it alone. Neither can a drug addict, neither can an alcoholic. They can't do it alone. I know that because it affected my family, and I prayed like a bugger, and he listened to me. That's why I'm on your board, because he helped me in to my family, and you're the same person. I'm just so mesmerized by all that you have done, and I wanted the public I wanted to share this with the public, so don't be embarrassed. I'm very, very proud of you. Thank you for making this a better world.
Thanks, Rita.
Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, I've heard this story a couple times, and every time I hear it, I think it's amazing. Some of the key points that really stand out about what you decided to bring up north with you, along with your sobriety, and congratulations on that as well, is something that I think is very important when we're dealing with these challenges: life experience. Not only yourself, but your staff, as you mentioned, have life experience. I think what that does is anybody that's facing challenges like this, they can relate. They can feel that connection, and they're being helped and listened to by somebody that's gone through it themselves and deals with it on a daily basis. I think that that sense of connection helps people get through these low points that many face, and it shows a true understanding of the complexities involved of addiction itself. I also think something that you failed to mention, and I think it's huge, I think the public needs to be made well aware. Not only do you work with the Workforce Development Board and employment, would you mind just telling the public, what is it, the employer, the Amazon employer, that you've been able to situate?
Yeah, that was kind of an amazing happening. We were making cold calls, trying to find new employers that might be willing to take on some of the employees that we could transport. Again, we're armed with that transportation thing, and we had left messages, Coca-Cola, UPS, FedEx, all these other places. And, we just called and left one at Amazon. And lo and behold, the woman who called back happened to be the HR manager of all of New England. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, really. And she turned out to be like the most down-to-earth, when she heard that what we were doing and the fact that we were helping people with transportation, she herself came out to the Bridge Club and has been there several times since. But, gave us kind of a trial with the new facility they just opened up in North Andover, time being everything, right? And so we went up, did a visit at the building up there, and worked out some of the kinks, some concerns they had, some things that we had issues with. We performed pretty well for them, and they called us and offered us a position as a community hiring partner for Amazon, which is kind of like, it's mind-boggling when you even say it, because with that goes along with the ability to co-brand. So we can actually put, and we have put, our logo and Amazon's logo on the same banners. And it's wild when you see like the Bridge Club of Lowell and Amazon on the same, it says the same piece of paper or the same banner. It's amazing. But that has been an amazing thing to be part of, because that's just the opportunities that are there for people are just endless. The growth is not going anywhere with them. We're only really, our main supplier is North Andover. But once they need us, we can do Haverhill, North Andover, Littleton, Wilmington, Salem, New Hampshire, and Nashua, New Hampshire. And generally, we don't cross borders. But we're able to do that because of another program that came to be. And I didn't want to cut off your questions, Councilor Robinson, but we had the ability through all of the things I just was explaining, the whole reentry program, dealing with the jails. We found a grant, a national grant through the Department of Labor and the Veterans Employment Training Services called the IVTP, the Incarcerated Veterans Training Program. And it's a subpart of a larger grant, the HVRP. Everything's acronyms with the vets, right? But the HVRP is the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program. When we applied for that grant, we were up against national organizations that had very widespread areas of reach. And Middlesex County looked very, very small in comparison. So we expanded out to Essex County, and then we thought, nah, why not let's look at neighboring states. So long story short, before long we were up dealing with the community college systems in New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont to be able to offer vocational training opportunities through their curriculum to any veterans in their areas. We would act basically as a fiscal agent, where someone in Montpelier, Vermont might walk in and say, I want to take CDL training, or I want to take cybersecurity, but my GI Bill benefits have run out and I'm facing self-pay. Can you help me? And they wouldn't have to dip into their own slush fund. They could call us and we would be able to help that veteran in whatever community in one of those 3 states. So it's been amazing to be able to expand that way, and it's a little mind-boggling when you think of it on a grander scale like that.
Well, congratulations.
No, thanks.
Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Chairman Getchia. I do appreciate you bringing in Bob Cox to the Bridge Club. And, I remember vividly, Bob, I think it was 2019 when Councilor Mercier and I chaired the opioid task force, and you gave a presentation of, before your opening of what you intended to do, what you wanted to achieve. And it pales in comparison to what you have accomplished. I'm just blown away and amazed of the partnerships that you've built, what you've achieved with funding after many, many ups and downs. I've had several conversations with you over the years, the challenges you've had during COVID when many therapy groups, if you will, did not make it through. Well, you excelled through that. You pulled through your leadership. You were a one-man army. You had help, no doubt, as we all do, as Councilor Mercier stated, but you stayed the course, my friend. And I know others are extremely proud of you, what you've done down there. We've heard the testimonies of people, what your programs have done for them. You've saved lives, Bob, and that was your mission, and you have made good on that. So I just want to say congratulations to what you've accomplished. And we're here to please, anything we can do for you to keep your doors open as far as funding and assistance, anything you need, we will be here for you. So again, thank you. Congratulations for what you've done for members of our community, reintegration, addiction issues. You've got it all covered, my friend. So thank you, and we're here for whatever you need going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Belanger.
Councilor Robinson.
Councilor, I just want to recognize Councilor Dakota is also here tonight in this subcommittee. Does anybody from the audience have any questions or anything they want to add? Seeing no one there, Mr. Cox, so.
I want to tell you about an exciting program. I'll make it quick, but I'm very, very extremely proud of this new program. Through our interaction with the VA out of Bedford, we were able to secure just last week. Councilor Mercier may or may not be aware of this, but we just secured a 5-year grant to provide transitional housing for homeless veterans. In conjunction with that, we're in the process of buying a building at 147 East Merrimack Street, the site of Morris Mason's, the old Mason Pharmacy, Morris Mason's building, and we're going to be turning that into transitional housing for veterans. The depth of this program, the magnitude of this program, I wasn't aware of when we first applied for it, but this is dealing with veterans who, like last night, were sleeping in the cold. This isn't people coming from jail. This isn't people coming from other programs or being referred from different organizations. These are people who are being vetted directly through the VA in Bedford or through a sister organization to the VA, but these are people who are legitimately homeless today. They're going to have a warm place to sleep tomorrow, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, counselors around the clock. It's a huge program. I'm just, this is going to be a huge feather in the cap, I think, for the city. This program existed in Haverhill up until a year and a half or 2 years ago, and the organization went defunct. So we picked up the slack there. And just as FYI down the road, we're working with St. Michael's Parish right now to take over the convent. The Archdiocese has given us soft approval, and we're waiting for final approval from that, and we've already talked to Enterprise Bank about funding that as a rehab, also to be used for transitional housing for veterans. So this could be a huge, huge thing for the city, a huge thing for the veterans who currently need a place to stay. Really looking forward to it, so.
So with that, time is getting short, so we don't want to cut you off on the end. But we do, I appreciate everything you do. That's why we all recognized you and wanted you to come here and explain to everybody how you got to this stage and how we can help you. That's what we're here for. We're trying to see, is there resident resources you need, or is there the city's resources, or how do we get to you? And also, what is your contact? Is there a phone number people can contact you at? Is there a website they should go to? How do they reach out to the Bridge
Absolutely.
Club?
There's a website, www.bridgecluboflowell.org. Number at the Bridge Club is 978-454-6191. We are open 7 days a week. Twice, okay. www.bridgeclubof, I said Lowell, Greater Lowell.org, and 978-454-6191. We're open 7 days a week, and right now we have 31 meetings that we run a week. 7 days a week, people can find meetings there, and there's always recovery coaches that are there and available to people 7 days a week. So
just to break some of the society's thoughts, are you at capacity during your meetings, or is there anybody turned away, or is there anything at this time that happens like that?
I'm not sure I follow the question.
So if 200 people show up, is there enough capacity? You know, have you ever turned somebody away because
No,
they don't?
we haven't. Our large room maxed out is like 140, 150, and we've had that and more. People understand that nobody can be turned away, because if someone's there, they're there for a reason. They're not there just to see if there's room. They're there because they need to be there. Whether it's to hear something that they need to hear or say something that somebody else needs to hear. There's room for everybody there.
The reason why I asked that is because there's this misconception in Lowell that we don't have enough resources for the issues that are going on, and you're one resource that we absolutely have enough space for everyone. So again, this body thanks you for taking the time out of your day. And one more thing, St. Patrick's Day breakfast, we forgot about that.
I wore this specifically, Councilor Gitcher, so I would not forget this. This Saturday, I know that the manager, I believe, bought a table, so there's no excuse for any of you councilors that can't make it. But it is 9 o'clock this Saturday at Lindsay's, and we're honoring Tom Shanahan. I think Councilor Mercia has the brochure. But yeah, it's going to be a great time, and it looks like it's going to be sold out again this year. Last year we had Mickey Ward that we honored. This year it's Tom Shanahan. And honestly, I was nervous about not being in the same type of crowd because of Mickey, But I'll tell you what, Tommy's got some juice, because I think we're up to 38 tables as of last night. So hopefully it's going to be a great time. I hope to see you all there.
At some point, can you give Councilor Dakota something? He's starting to feel left out here. You keep giving Mickey stuff, and he's the guy behind the scenes who, he's starting to feel left out. Can he be the comedian this year?
We could do something, sure.
There you go.
Yes. Dave Russo is there, yes.
Well, again,
All the way.
thank you again for taking your time out of your day.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Robinson.